Hey, Ken Krawchuk here, and welcome to the me portion of episode 220 of the Pennsylvania Project, where I get to rant a bit about something that really sticks in my craw. Today, I'm going to be ranting about the flaws in our voting system and, of course, how we can go about solving them. So let's start at the top. Were you happy with the choices available in the last presidential election or the one before that? Did you vote for your candidate wholeheartedly, or was it another classic example of choosing the lesser of two evils? A practice that's much more pervasive than you might imagine. Let's take, for example, the 2016 U.S. presidential election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Polling data by Pew Research just before that election showed that Mr. Trump had only 11% solid support, while in fact a majority of the voters did not like him. Ms. Clinton was microscopically better with a mere 12% solid support, but a majority of the voters also disliked her. And despite being so widely disliked, Mr. Trump was nevertheless elected. And sadly, the same scenario was repeated in the 2020 presidential election. Most people did not like Mr. Trump or Mr. Biden, yet one of them got elected. Now, who else sees a problem here? Why is it that we keep electing people that most voters do not like? Well, I'm here today to tell you why. It's all because of our system of voting. Whoever thinks about that? Virtually all elections use a system known as plurality voting. That's where you, the voter, pick a candidate that you like best, and the candidate with the most votes wins. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it's also the worst way to run an election because it results in winners winning that we, the voters, do not like. Pew Research says that too. And this failure is not a recent discovery. Back about the time of the American Revolution, two French scholars, I'm going to blow the names, Nicolas de Condorcet and Charles de Borda, they published a treatise on why plurality voting is the worst possible system. As an alternative, they championed a system that we call today ranked choice voting, also known as instant runoff voting. That's where you rank competing candidates according to your preference. You say who you like best, second best, and so on, and the candidate that gets more people liking them the best is the one who gets elected. And currently, Alaska, Maine, they use ranked choice voting, and about 20 cities scattered across the country. There's only one problem with ranked choice voting. It's almost as bad as plurality voting. And in elections where there are only two candidates, it's exactly as bad as plurality voting. That's because ranked choice voting has the same basic problem. It does not prevent the election of a candidate that most voters do not like. Ranked choice fails because it only lets you say how much you like a candidate and not how much you dislike a candidate. Oh, I'm telling you. Trust me, I've run for high public office several times, and I could tell you that when a candidate gets a vote, they take it as a mandate, a validation of all their stands. They think that you love them, support everything about them, even though it's a fact that you don't. But the sad truth, they do not see you holding your nose as you stand there in the voting booth, dithering over which candidate is the least of all those evils. But in the end, we Americans keep on giving our approval to candidates who simply just don't deserve it. Do you say plurality voting and ranked choice voting both suck? They suck because neither one has any mechanism to capture your true feelings. And do you see the obvious solution? Our voting system needs to incorporate some way to measure voter dissatisfaction. Fortunately, libertarian Roy Minette, a retired Lancaster physicist, has finally come up with a voting method that solves all the problems with plurality voting. Actually, he came up with two voting methods. I'll get to that. The first one and the simpler one he calls approve, disapprove voting, or AADV for short. The way it works is simplicity itself. You vote for your favorite candidate, your second favorite candidate, and, most importantly, you vote for the candidate you disapprove of. For every vote for your favorite candidate, that candidate gets a +1 on their score. For every vote on your second favorite candidate, they get a +1 on their score. But for every disapproval vote for an unfavorable candidate, they get a -1 on their score. You total up all the +1s and the -1s, and then the candidate with the highest score wins. And that's the beauty of the AADV method. It not only captures your likes, it also captures your dislikes. But wait, there's more. There's a twist to that AADV method. If a candidate's final score goes negative, meaning that a majority of the voters disapprove of that candidate is disqualified and cannot win. Too cool. Now, you remember how Pew Research revealed that a majority of Americans didn't like either Trump or Hillary? If we had approve, disapprove voting, it's likely that neither one would have been elected because of a final negative score. and America would not be saddled with a president that most Americans hated. Now, if you think this would be a good thing, then hang on, because our physicist Roy Manette came up with a second voting method that also captures voter disapproval. That one is called the best alternate worst voting method, or BAWV for short. It's similar to approve, disapprove method. So your best candidate still gets a +1. Your worst candidate still gets a -1, but your alternate candidate gets no points, at least not initially. And like before, the candidate with the highest score total wins. Candidates with a negative score, of course, are disqualified. But if the total for one candidate goes negative, then you go to the alternate candidate votes and change their score from a 0 to a +1. You retally the score, and then once again, you see who wins. Maybe somebody else is going to go negative, maybe not. Yes, it's a bit more complicated to tally, but according to Roy's research, it's somewhat better than AADV, worth the complexity. So there you have it, 2 new ways of voting: approve, disapprove voting, or best alternate worst voting. Both perform a crucial measurement that's missing from today's elections. Both of them will capture voter dissatisfaction. You know, we have a cute tradition in the Libertarian Party. It's called none of the above, NOTA, NOTA. If NOTA wins a majority of the votes, the entire slate of candidates is eliminated, and we start off with a new one in their place. We've always talked about having NOTA in regular elections, but Roy came up with this approve, disapprove, which he liked much better. Now imagine if we replaced plurality voting with either one of Roy's methods. No longer would you have to hold your nose when you're voting. No longer would you have to choose the lesser of two evils. Instead, I don't know about you, but I would be grinning a very wide grin as you press eagerly on that disapprove button. And America would no longer be saddled with politicians that most of us hate. And it'd be interesting to see who gets elected after that. Thank you for that, Roy Manette. On that approving note, that's going to wrap it up for episode 220 of the Pennsylvania Project. What do you think about approve, disapprove voting, or best alternate worst? Or school bus stop sign cameras, or teaching the Pennsylvania Constitution to our kids, or anything somewhat Pennsylvania related?